I have some good news here about the war on drugs coming out of Oregon. This is from the Washington Post. First-time offenders caught with small amounts of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and other illegal drugs will face less jail time and smaller fines under a new bill approved by the Oregon legislature that aims to curb mass incarceration. The Oregon legislature passed a bill late last week that reclassifies possession of several drugs from a felony to a misdemeanor, reducing the punishments and expanding access to drug treatment for people without prior felonies or convictions for drug possession. Oregon lawmakers hope to encourage drug users to seek help rather than filling up the state's prisons as an epidemic of abuse spreads. So, many articles are classifying this as decriminalization, but that's not decriminalization. Decriminalization means it is simply not a crime. So, in other words, it's not legal, but it's not a crime if you're caught with drugs. Here, what they're saying is first-time offenders face smaller fines, less jail time and smaller fines. And they'll probably use some prosecutorial discretion, and they'll say, yeah, you know, whatever, for somebody caught with a small amount of marijuana or cocaine or whatever, we might not even try to get any jail time, even though we technically still could try to get jail time. It would just be a smaller amount of jail time and a smaller fine. So they're basically trying to retool stuff slowly but surely and move it in the direction of rehabilitation. And what's sad is this is a story. Like, we view it as a novel idea. Like, oh, look at this new thing people are trying. But it should have been the case a long, long time ago, man. Like, the idea that, hey, maybe somebody struggling with addiction or something needs medical treatment and not to be locked in a cage. The idea that that wasn't already the dominant philosophy that has been implemented for decades is just maddening. Because you shouldn't, like, you don't get to pretend you're in favor of freedom and liberty and justice and then, you know, defend this mass incarceration epidemic we have where we're locking up more people than China. And I almost sound like China, where we're locking up more people than them, and we act like, well, what do you mean? This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Free to do what? Obviously not free to take a substance that, you know, tweaks your consciousness. And again, remember, decriminalization and legalization are very different things. People know who listen to the show, I'm in favor of legalizing, taxing, and regulating, but decriminalization is just like the baby step. The common sense baby step of, like, I don't know, let's not ruin lives over drugs, maybe. And now you have some places that are just starting to come around to that position, which is good to see, but it's, you know, damning with faint praise, because I wish it was decades and decades ago that we started doing this. But what we really need is at the federal level, we need to decriminalize drug possession. And look, there's been a lot of crazy stories and admissions around this particular issue. I mean, remember, it was a high-ranking official in Nixon's administration who came out and said, oh yeah, the reason we did the war on drugs was to crack down on liberal white people. I think they said hippies and black people. They said, yeah, they weren't going to be people who were ever going to be on our side, who were ever going to be a coalition for us. So we wanted to criminalize those populations however we could. And how do we criminalize population? Well, a lot of them like to smoke marijuana. They're the free love and anti-war movement, so yeah, a lot of them do drugs, so let's make drugs illegal. And then, you know, over $1 trillion later, and countless people locked up, and countless deaths as a result of the drug war, because it's a literal war where thousands of people have died on the Mexican border, and the drug cartels are incredibly powerful. It's a narco state in places of Mexico. This is where we're at. We're at a point where people are still taking the same amount of drugs they took before, if not more, and you just wasted $1 trillion, and you created a powerful black market. Look, that's the thing that people really don't ever talk about, even though they should, which is decriminalization is just the first step in the conversation, but how did we defeat, you know, all the problems and ills associated with prohibition? By getting rid of prohibition. by legalizing alcohol consumption again. Because when we had prohibition, what happened? The mafia got incredibly powerful because they had a monopoly on the alcohol market. They would sell it on the black market, and they got really rich and really powerful as a result of it, and crime rose. Because whenever there was a dispute, you settle it with guns in the street as opposed to going to court. So it's the same thing with the drug cartels. The reason the drug cartels are so powerful is because drugs are still illegal. But we've already seen the beginnings of it in places like, obviously some states have legalized recreational marijuana, Washington, Colorado, California. And apparently there have been articles about how that's really hurting the drug cartels. So the last thing they want is for there to be, legal, taxed, and regulated drugs, because then that undercuts them. Because what would you do? Would you rather go to, a safe market and go get drugs when you know it's regulated and stuff like that, or would you rather go to some weirdo, some creep in a back alley? I think you know the answer to that. And a lot of people are just willing to pay higher prices just to go to the market so that they get it and everything's kind of straightforward and above the table. And we saw this in Nevada. They recently legalized recreational marijuana. They ran out of it in like a few days. The governor declared a statement of emergency and said, yeah, we got to find a way to, resupply these people, these distributors, because damn, this is selling fast. It's a lot of tax revenue for the state, and it's a whole lot of upsides. So there we have it. Oregon taking a baby step in the right direction. I'd like to see a lot more states do this, and I'd like everybody to go further at a federal level as well.